there, thanks for watching today's Drawing for Adults video brought to you by the Ann Arbor District Library and the Ann Arbor Art Center. Today we are going to be starting a 3-part series about perspective, and today's focus will be with graphite and just a sheet of paper, and we will be exploring 1-point perspective. So 1-point perspective is where you have all of your objects all going to one vanishing point. So all of the shapes will then have converging lines lead to 1 point. So what we're going to do for this project is first start with that dot. So you can put that somewhere towards the center, like somewhere in the middle of your paper. And then what we'll do is draw shapes that kind of surround it. So kind of think about it drawing like a ring of shapes. And what you can also do as you're drawing these shapes, it looks really neat if you do this project by trying to kind of Tetris-like the shapes, but where they don't actually touch, and you leave enough of a gap between each one, but it will kind of look like a shattered, I don't know, 3D form of glass or something, whatever that version would be. So it's really neat. It has lots of different facets by the end of it, but you can draw however many. I definitely would recommend going a little bit bigger with the object or with the shapes than what I'm doing here. But looking around at each shape and the kind of the space that forms around the shape as also being important. Make sure they're not too close together, otherwise everything will look kind of cramped. So you can see here I'm taking a ruler or you should take a ruler, I'm doing this digitally so it's a little bit different. I'm taking the corners of the shape that's closest to my dot, and I'm drawing a line that connects each of those corners to the dot. So with mine, I'm not actually, since I'm doing this digitally, I'm not using a ruler. You're gonna see how it's actually, in this case, more complicated to do it digitally because I have to cut through each of my objects and then erase the line that kind of intersects it. So when you're doing it, you can just draw, like kind of connect your ruler from the one corner there of your shape to the point there in the center, or vanishing point, and then draw that line and then just skip over the shape that kind of overlaps it. So it's really important here when you're doing it to do the ones closest to the vanishing point first, and then do the ones around it. Otherwise, you know, because they're not see-through, unless you wanted to play with transparency here, which could look really cool, but would also make it a little bit more complicated. And after doing this, it does do a lot, you know, you're getting a lot of vanishing points, a lot of practice here with perspective and shading and all of that. So speaking of shading is just another term that we use when referring to that transition of darks to lights. And so when you're closer to the vanishing point there, that's when I'm pressing down a lot harder and going a little bit darker. And then as it gets closer to the shape that I originally drew, I'm going a little bit lighter. And then that shape, I'm leaving that as the surface, which means that's where the light is kind of coming from. It's up above. And so that top surface level there is going to be a lot lighter. So I zoom in on this a little bit and cropped in because it just got a little bit taking really long time. But as you can see here by the end of it, it looks really neat. It's just a cool way of exploring 1-point perspective in a little bit more of a non-traditional way, but I hope that you can apply these techniques to other ways in your artwork.